Sanding drywall is one of those tasks that many people dread. The dust, the mess, the endless back and forth just to get a smooth finish. It's enough to make anyone want to avoid the job entirely. But what if sanding could be easier? What if, with a few simple taping tips and techniques, you could dramatically cut down on the effort and achieve professional results every time? Today, we're going to break down the essential drywall taping tips that will make sanding not just easier, but almost effortless. The secret to easy sanding starts well before you ever pick up a sanding block or pole sander. It begins with the taping process. Proper taping lays the foundation for a smooth finish, reducing the amount of sanding you'll need and ensuring that your walls look flawless when painted. Let's dive into the process step by step. First, preparation is key. Before you even open that bucket of joint compound, make sure your drywall is properly installed. All screws or nails should be slightly recessed below the surface of the drywall, but not deep enough to break the paper. Any debris or dust should be wiped away, and the room should be as clean as possible to prevent contamination of the mud. Next, select the right joint compound. For taping, all-purpose or lightweight joint compound works well. If you're a beginner, lightweight mud is more forgiving and easier to sand later. It's also essential to use the correct tape. Paper tape is strong and standard for most applications, but self-adhesive fiberglass mesh tape is a good choice for flat seams and repairs. Remember, the goal is to reinforce the joints and prevent future cracking. Start with the seams. Apply a thin layer of joint compound along the seam with a 6-inch taping knife. Hold the knife at a slight angle to apply just enough mud to embed the tape. Place the tape over the wet mud, pressing it gently into place. Then, with your knife, smooth over the tape, pressing out any bubbles and excess mud. The key here is not to overload the joint with compound. Too much mud will create more sanding work later. Aim for a thin, even layer that just covers the tape, ensuring it's fully bonded to the wall. With the tape embedded, move on to the first coat or fill coat. Once the initial mud dries, carefully apply a slightly wider layer of joint compound over the tape, feathering the edges outward. Use a 10 or 12-inch knife for this step to help blend the compound seamlessly into the surrounding drywall. Smooth out the mud in long, even strokes. The goal is to gradually build up the area so the seam becomes less visible, but avoid leaving thick ridges or lumps. Every imperfection you leave now will mean extra sanding later. Corners require a bit more finesse. For inside corners, fold paper tape along its crease, press it in a thin layer of compound, and use a corner trowel or a flexible knife to smooth both sides at once. For outside corners, use metal or plastic corner bead for strength, and then apply compound in several thin layers, feathering out each coat further than the last. Taking your time here and maintaining smooth, consistent layers will pay off when it comes time to sand. After your fill coat dries, inspect your work. Use a bright light held at an angle to spot any ridges, bumps, or tool marks. Before you add the final coat, gently knock down any high spots with a drywall knife or a sanding sponge. This isn't a full sanding, just a quick pass to keep the surface manageable. The final coat or finish coat should be as thin and smooth as possible. Use a 12-inch knife and apply a skim coat that feathers out well beyond the previous layers. The smoother you can get this coat, the less sanding you'll need. Some professionals even add a small amount of water to the joint compound to create a creamier texture that's easier to spread and leaves fewer ridges. Now, let's talk about sanding. If you've followed these taping tips, sanding becomes a quick and easy step rather than a dreaded chore. Begin with a fine grit sanding sponge or pole sander. About 120 to 150 grit is perfect for finish work. Always sand lightly and with gentle pressure. The goal is to smooth the surface, not to dig into it. Use long, even strokes and move in a circular motion or along the seams, blending the edges with the rest of the wall. A good tip is to shine a bright light parallel to the wall as you sand. This will cast shadows on any imperfections and help you see what needs attention. Don't oversand, especially over the tape. If you sand down to the tape itself, you risk weakening the joint and causing future cracks. Focus only on smoothing the transition between the mud and the drywall. For dust control, consider using a sanding sponge attached to a vacuum or a pole sander with a dust collection bag. Always wear a mask and goggles, as drywall dust is very fine and can irritate your lungs and eyes. After sanding, wipe down the walls with a damp cloth or sponge to remove any residual dust. Inspect your work closely. If you find any small imperfections, now is the time to patch them with a quick swipe of joint compound, let it dry and sand again. The final step before painting is priming. Always prime your drywall after sanding. Primer seals the porous surface of the joint compound, prevents flashing and highlights any remaining imperfections that may need touch-up. Remember, the real secret to easy sanding is careful taping. By applying thin, even coats of joint compound, feathering your edges, and taking the time to smooth each layer as you go, you'll save yourself hours of sanding and end up with a flawless finish. Good taping habits not only make the process easier, they ensure that your walls look great and stand the test of time. So don't dread sanding your drywall. With these taping tips, you'll find that a little extra care up front leads to a much smoother, cleaner, and more satisfying result. Happy sanding and enjoy your beautifully finished walls.